the Gunnison country's preeminent historian, and generations of Western students have benefited from Dr. Vandenbusche, and now you may do the same. Let's give him a hand, Dr. Dwayne.
Thank you very much, Hank, and welcome everybody. I want to start off with a little story before I get into the history of the Gunnison country. About 50 years ago, a good friend of mine graduated from the University of Iowa, and he was a real religious guy, and he went to church on Sunday to pray that he would be successful as a traveling salesman. And he went to the Catholic Church, and during the service he saw there was a golden telephone on the altar. And when he got done when the service was over, he came up to the priest and he said, "What's the golden telephone all about?" And the priest said, "That's the hotline to God." And my friend said, "How much does it cost to make a call like that?" And the priest said, $25,000. My friend, in the last 50 years, has been all over the nation. Every Sunday he was at a different place in a different state. Always saw that golden telephone, but he never had the money to pay for the call. This last Sunday, he came to Gunnison, and he went to the church, Catholic church. And after the service was over, he walked up to the priest and he said, "You know, been around the nation, never had the $25,000 to make the damn call." And the priest said, $25,000? He said, "It's only a quarter." And my friend said, "How come it's $25,000 everywhere else in the United States, but only a quarter in Gunnison?" And the priest said, "Because, my son, in the Gunnison country, it's only a local call." Wow. And you are in one of the most beautiful areas in the world. One more quick story. 50 years ago, one of the great historians in America, David Lavender, stood in Telluride, Colorado, in the San Miguel River Valley. And he was with Theodore Kreiber, the world's greatest anthropologist who had written about Ishi, the last surviving Indian in California. And Theodore Kreiber was reminiscing about what it was to grow up in that beautiful valley. And she said this in one paragraph: "In that thin, dry air, life moved at a pace of almost terrible intensity. There were no neutral moments, the galloping brevity of spring and summer, the long months of winter with the threat of tragedy always hovering near. Colors were high, the reds in the soil, the fall gold of the aspens, the indescribable sky. Riding in summer and tobogganing in winter were fast and dangerous. The heights of the mountains and the depths of the canyons were beyond the human norm. One went about totally sensitized. No wonder recovery for the elders was a trip to the coast, and for a youngster, introversion. Get on your horse and ride until you looked out and down, tremendously out and down. God was a pagan god, in the air, over the mountains, in the waterfalls. But how can I give the feeling tone of that high alpine valley, which simply is one of the most beautiful spots in the world?" And you're in another one of the most beautiful spots in the world. Anytime you go up to Crested Butte and make that turn and look at 14,000 foot high mountains, the Elk Mountains between here and Aspen, you know that you're one of the most beautiful spots in the world. The Gunnison country extends from Monarch Pass in the east, 11,300 feet, all the way to Cimarron in the west, 8,000 feet, Lake City, almost 9,000 feet in the south, and all the way to Marble, about 8,000 feet in the north. Gunnison County is one of the top 4 elevated counties in the nation. 6th biggest county in Colorado out of the 64, 3,300 square miles with only 15,000 people. 79% of the land is federal, National Forest, Bureau of Land Management, or National Park Service. 25 years ago, Time magazine ranked Gunnison County as one of the top 20 affluent counties in the nation. And that's because of people like you. People going to Western State Colorado University, people working at the Crested Butte ski area or the Monarch ski area, slinging hamburgers for a while so they can ski and mountain bike and go to the reservoir and take advantage of the great outdoors. 10 years ago, Forbes magazine rated Western State Colorado University as one of the top universities in the West. The Gunnison country has had a great and colorful history. Mark Steiger, our archaeologist, has uncovered artifacts from people who lived on top of W Mountain, Signal Peak, and other areas in the Gunnison country 10 to 12,000 years ago. 2,500 Ute Indians lived in the Gunnison country after around the year 1600. And right about where the 13th green is at the Dos Rios Golf Course, Dos Rios meaning meeting of two rivers, Gunnison and Tamichi coming together, we had a cow camp that served the Indians, provided them with their beef. And the man in charge of that cow camp was a great rancher named Alonzo Hartman. And that's why we call Hartman Rocks, because that's where the cow camp originally was. The Spanish looked for gold in the Gunnison country, trying to find the 7 cities of Quivira. Never did. They were also trying to convert the Ute Indians and trying to find a good overland trail from Santa Fe, New Mexico to their mission stations out in Southern California. The original name of the Gunnison River is the Rio de la San Xavier. Following the Spanish were the fur traders, the mountain men, in the Gunnison country as early as 1780, and certainly during the Great Mountain Man era, trapping the pelt of the beaver, which was known at that time as black gold. Every beaver pelt got you $7. That would be equivalent to $700 a pelt by today's standards. When all the streams were tapped out in 1842, that era came to an end. Next came the explorers. In 1853, the United States gave $150,000 for 4 railroad surveys from the Mississippi River out to the west, hoping to find a route for the Transcontinental Railroad. One of the guys on that trip, one of the 4, was John Williams Gunnison. 1853, coming right over Cochito Pass, right through the Gunnison country about 2 weeks later than we are right now, along the Black Canyon, avoiding that, and going out into Utah where he was killed by Paiute Indians. And that's why we call it the Gunnison Valley, the town of Gunnison, Mount Gunnison, and so on. Transcontinental Railroad never came through here because of places like the Black Canyon and the Lake Fork Canyon. The next group of people who came in the early 1860s were placer miners. These are individual gold panners. Individuals who had a gold pan scraping a little debris out of the bottom of a stream bed, then a little water in the gold pan, gently rotating it downhill. All the light stuff flowed off, and then with forceps you took the rocks out, put them off to the side, and if you were lucky there was black sand or gold on the bottom of the pan, too heavy to float out. And then you put a little mercury in the bottom of the pan, and then you burn the mercury off. Mercury amalgamates with gold. And what is left in the bottom of the pan was always known as paid dirt, the dirt that pays. Shot, wire, grain, flour, and dust. Put it in your saddlebags and ride away. Free gold. 500 placer miners in the Gunnison country. Taylor Park, Dead Man's Gulch, where the Indians killed 7 of them. Rock Creek, Snowblind Gulch, panning every stream in the Gunnison country. In the year 1874, a man named Sylvester Richardson brought 20 people in as the Gunnison Colony. He had been here the year before, and this looked like a great farming area. When they came in, he thought the weather might be too cold, so everybody turned to ranching. And a big myth grew up, and the big myth was you can't farm in the Gunnison country. They did, you can, and we will, even today. But that was the original start of the Anglos starting to come in to the Gunnison country. Following Sylvester Richardson, tremendous mining started to take place in the San Juan Mountains. Lake City, Telluride, and Silverton grew up. 3,000-4,000 people each one of these camps. And in the Gunnison country, we also had our great mining camps. So 3,000-4,000 people in each camp, smelters, investors with names like Rockefeller and DuPont and Rothschild coming in, toll roads, and the names of those were Irwin, 10 miles west of Crested Butte, Gothic, 8 miles north of Crested Butte, Tin Cup on the edge of Taylor Park, White Pine near the base of Monarch Pass, and Pitkin, 28 miles to the east and a little bit north of here. The Denver and Rio Grande Railroad came into Gunnison in 1881. Denver, Colorado City, Pueblo, Royal Gorge, Marshall Pass, paralleling Monarch Pass, down the Tomichi Valley into Gunnison, August of 81. 28-mile branch going up to Crested Butte to tap the coal mines. Building straight to the west through 15 miles of the Black Canyon, then having to come out. Following that railroad 1 year later was another great narrow gauge. One of the most famous in Colorado and Western history, the Denver, South Park, and Pacific. Denver, Turkey Creek Canyon, Kenosha Pass, South Park, Trout Creek Pass, up Chalk Creek, and then through the highest railroad tunnel in the world, 11,523 feet high, the Alpine Tunnel. Snow sheds 500 feet on either side. And down the narrow gauge came through a tremendous rock formation built without mortar called the Palisades, and into Gunnison in September of 82, and up into Ohio Creek about 15 miles where it dead ended. $200 million worth of gold and silver were taken out of the Gunnison country by placer and lode mining. And then it all came to an end suddenly in 1893. Silver panic of 93. The United States went on a gold standard. Didn't produce silver for coins anymore. And the price of silver plummeted to 58 cents an ounce, and that was it for silver forever in Colorado. Georgetown to the wall, Aspen to the wall, Creed to the wall, all the towns in the Gunnison country to the wall. Uray, Silverton, and Telluride not to the wall because they had gold along with silver, and they were able to stay alive as a great gold mining area. In 1910, the Gunnison country was one of the greatest ranching areas in the nation. 300 ranches, 40,000 cows, 10,000 horses, 2,000 mules. In 1949, soon-to-be Governor Dan Thornton, whose ranch was Castle Mountain, north of town about 4 miles, sold 2 bulls and a dispersal sale. And each one of those bulls in 1949 brought $50,000 each. The best bred cattle in the world came out of the Gunnison country. Investors came from all over the world to buy bulls in the Gunnison country. With ranching came the outlaws. When you walk down Main Street today and you come to a little place called Treads and Threads, that's where Wyatt Earp and Morgan Earp ran a faro exchange for 11 months. When you go out to Parlin, that is where Frank and Jesse James worked for 3 weeks on the Dodge from Missouri. When you go out to Doyleville, Billy the Kid was out there for 1 week working. When you go to Creed, Bat Masterson was the sheriff. And when you go to Cochevers in Crested Butte, they still have a gun belt from a guy who was forced to hang his gun belt up when he wanted a beer with the sheriff on his trail. He bailed out of there, forgot his gun on his gun belt, and the 2 guys who were in there were Robert Leroy Parker and Harry Longbaugh, better known as Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. heading for northwestern Colorado and Robbers Roost. In May of 1874, one of the great surveyors, part of the great surveys of the American West, Ferdinand Vandenbusche Hayden, stood on top of Mount Teocalli at over 13,000 feet, looked off to the north and saw two high mountains, and he named them the Crested Buttes. Later on, they decided that one of them more resembled a Gothic cathedral, so they named it Gothic. And they dropped the S off of the buttes. And it became known as Crested Butte Mountain because it resembled the edge of a Spanish crest on the helmet. Crested Butte became one of the great towns in Colorado very early. It was the jumping off point for the Elk Mountains. Aspen, Colorado in the 1880s was the #1 silver town in the world, but it didn't have a railroad. And as a result, all their supplies had to be brought in from the nearest railhead at Crested Butte. And all of the ore from the Smuggler and the Molly Gibson and all the great mines had to be brought in over East Maroon Pass at 11,800 feet into Gothic, then to the railhead at Crested Butte. And those burros, which carried 200 pounds on their back, were known as Rocky Mountain Canaries, because if you overloaded them, they would sit down and emit a shrill whistle, which reminded the miners of a canary. Crested Butte, future, rested with coal. 9 great coal mines in and around Crested Butte. One of them, 11 miles to the west, Floresta, had the largest coal breaker west of Pennsylvania. Another one, 4 miles up the Slate River, called Anthracite, had the second biggest coal breaker west of Connellsville, Pennsylvania. And Crested Butte had 154 coke ovens just south of town. And there they took bituminous coal and they heated it, driving off the carbon dioxide. And when it was cool, that slag went down to the CF&I steel mills in Pueblo. Now, some of you came up from Denver, you saw a big quarry on the left side of the road. That's a limestone quarry owned by the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company of Pueblo. You need lime to make steel. You need coking coal to make steel. You need molten iron to make steel. Now, where I come from in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, we got a town called Bessemer. And that's great iron and copper country, and it was named for Henry Bessemer of England, who invented the blast furnace. And now at Pueblo, the only major steel manufacturing plant west of the Mississippi River for a long time, coking coal, lime, molten iron, and a blast furnace, which means that you blast air into the furnace, driving more impurities out, and iron was made into steel. And Crested Butte was an integral part of the American Revolution in the production of steel that powered the American Revolution. The early miners in Crested Butte were from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, and they were called Cousin Jacks. And their wives were called Cousin Jennies. And they called them Cousin Jacks because when one guy got killed in the mine, one guy go up to the foreman and say, "My cousin Jack can do that," and another guy was on the way. Later on in the 1890s, when the silver and gold mines closed up, agricultural people came into Crested Butte from Austria, Italy, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Albania, with strange-sounding names like Krismanich and Mihelich and Saya and Panyan. They were Catholic. They didn't speak the English language. And it was a very difficult time in the history of Crested Butte as those two groups of people got together. In 1952, the big mine at Crested Butte, which had been open for over 50 years, third biggest coal mine in Colorado, closed up. Oil and gas replaced it. Transportation expensive. 3 years later, they took up the railroad tracks. 12 years later, the Crested Butte School closed. Crested Butte population dropped from 1,500 to 250. Denver Post said it was going to be a ghost town. You could have bought a lot in Crested Butte in 1962 when I came here for $50. You could have bought a house for $500. And just when it looked bad, a guy named Dick Eflin and his partner Fred Rice came into Crested Butte, bought the Molensic Ranch at the base of the mountain, and began the Crested Butte ski area. And Crested Butte had always had a tremendous tradition in skiing. Back in the 1880s, they had tour races where miners from all the towns would get together on a Saturday or Sunday and compete for $25 or $30 first prize. Skis 9 to 14 feet long, no grooves on the bottom. Heel block 4 inches high in the back, so your heel could not come back, but it could come up. Leather toe piece, guide pole 7 feet long, and that's how you got around. And the most famous race in Colorado history occurred south of Crested Butte on a steep ridge called Gibson's Ridge on Washington's birthday, February 22nd, 1886. All the miners had come in from the various towns. The Denver and Rio Grande ran a special train from Gunnison. 1,000 people were down below watching this. 525-yard course. No gates. Fastest one down wins. The different heats were decided. 4 men in the finals for the $30 first prize. One guy's Harry Cornwall, a mining engineer from Irwin. Another guy's Albert Fish, a mining engineer from Crystal. One guy is Al Johnson, the famous snowshoer, that means skis at that time, carried the mail from Crested Butte to Crystal through the feared Devil's Punch Bowl, never been beaten. And the last guy was a 16-year-old boy from Crested Butte named Charlie Bainey. And the newspaper account said he had been fairly raised on snowshoes or skis. So here they were on top of the mountain, each man hiding from the other to put something they called dope on the bottom of their skis, which meant wax. And a rifle shot started them down the mountain. 2 guys, Fish and Cornwall, out of it completely. And then, halfway through the course, Charlie Bainey, said the newspaper account, doubled himself up on his shoes and shot down the mountain like a speeding bullet. Charlie Bainey had gone into the first racing tuck in history. Al Johnson's mother did not raise a dumb kid. Al Johnson went into a racing tuck, went by Charlie Bainey temporarily, but as they flashed through the finish line in 16 seconds, which comes out to about 62 miles an hour into the flats with a cheering crowd, a lot of money bet on everybody, including Bainey and Johnson. Charlie Bainey had beaten Al Johnson by 18 inches. The only time that Al Johnson had ever been beaten in his life. And now the Crested Butte ski area followed in that tradition. Some of the best extreme skiing in the nation. People around the nation speak in hushed terms of runs called Rambo, Dead Bobs, Body Bag Chute, Phoenix Bowl, Teocalli Bowl, and you're all going to have an opportunity to ski them. At Crested Butte, one of the great extreme ski areas of all time. The greatest wildflower area in Colorado is hiking from Crested Butte to Aspen. Tremendous arts and crafts festivals, tremendous music festivals. We have the world champion in free riding, a 20-year-old boy named Aaron Blunk from Crested Butte. We got the world champion 3,000-meter steeplechaser, track and field, 26-year-old Emma Coburn. They say everybody in the Gunnison country is a great athlete, whether you're 4 or 80. And you're all going to be part of it. Enough on the Gunnison country, and a few words about Western State Colorado University. Highest 4-year school in the nation at 7,703 feet. Started in 1911 as a 2-year Colorado State normal school, 2-year teacher education school. 1923, 4 years Western State College. In October of that year, Dr. John Johnson of the biology department had red flags looking out at Tenderfoot Mountain, where he had students on top with red flags. He had a telescope, they had a telescope, he's moving them around. And they put in the largest college letter in the nation, the big W. And Tenderfoot Mountain was now renamed W Peak. Western State students whitewashed that for a long time. But they got carried away with the whitewash, so today the maintenance department does it. Today's mascot is the Mountaineer, but it wasn't the Mountaineer prior to 1950, and I'm going to read you the newspaper account that said the Fawn was the mascot, to represent the qualities of alertness, strength, speed, curiosity, grace, and sensitivity. The colors of the college are crimson and slate. Crimson from the color of the Indian paintbrush, slate from the sagebrush above the college. From 1941 to 53, Cupelo Hill, the one right back of Mountaineer Bowl, had a rope tow and it was lighted for 12-year ski area. Gunnison County had 11 ski areas with lifts. No county in Colorado could ever come close to that. Every year, Western State co-eds vied for championships of, I love these names, Miss WSC, Miss Personality, Miss Democracy, Miss Leadership, Miss Attractiveness, and Miss Highway 50. Through the years, the university has always emphasized the great outdoors. The Western State ski team turned out 26 Olympic skiers. And our coach Sven Wick was a two-time U.S. Olympic coach. Today we have the mountain sports program, Duncan Callahan, free riding, alpine and Nordic skiing, mountain biking. It's one of the great programs that we have. The men and women's cross-country teams at Western State have won 13 national championships, 4 Olympic skiers. The Gunnison Country is home to some of the best skiing, the best mountain climbing, the best fishing. World record rainbow and German brown trout, Gunnison Country. Hunting, world record elk shot by John Plute in the Dark Canyon, 1905. Great mountain biking, rivaling Moab, Utah, and tremendous hiking. You're also in a great academic institution. We have world-class programs and an average of 17 people per class. And world-class programs in environmental studies, biology, exercise and sports science, geology, land and resource management, archaeology, and many more. We have the only college-certified search and rescue team in the nation. Only college that has a certified search and rescue team. Now I'm going to finish off by giving you some places that are very important for you to know about and maybe to go to. Rocky Mountain Biological Laboratory, Gothic. World famous. Some of the top studies done in climate change are done there. Started in 1928 by Dr. John C. Johnson of the Western State Biology Department. Blue Mesa Reservoir, 9 miles west of town. Largest body of water in Colorado. Second biggest tourist attraction in Colorado. 1.5 million come every year. Right down Rocky Mountain National Park. Paddleboarding, diving, fishing, boating, all kinds of things. Black Canyon. We speak with hushed terms when we talk about the Black Canyon National Park. One of 4 in Colorado. Walls 2,700 feet high. Very few people have ever been all the way through the Black Canyon. The Gunnison River roaring through it. Crested Butte Ski Area. Already talked about it. Monarch Ski Area, 44 miles away, the best powder skiing in Colorado outside of Wolf Creek Pass, and a legendary run called the Gun Barrel. Hartman Rocks, 3 miles south of Crested Butte, 150 miles of great mountain bike trails. including the famous Aberdeen Loop. When you get off Monarch Pass, they got Monarch Crest Bike Trail, 8 miles at 12,000 feet. And other tremendous trails in the Gunnison country with names like 401 and Dr. Park and the Upper Loop and the Lower Loop, we go on and on. Mountain climbing. You can climb 14,000 foot peaks between Aspen and Crested Butte. North and south, Maroon Bells, Capitol, Castle, Snowmass, and Pyramid. You can go to Ouray and have the best ice climbing in the world, practically. You can go to Hartman Rocks and climb. You can go up Taylor Canyon and climb. 2 great museums, the Gunnison Pioneer Museum and the Crested Butte Heritage Museum. In conclusion, all of you are here at a special time. We now have university status. We got new dorms. We got a new field house. We got a almost new college center. The Gunnison country is so beautiful that many movies have been made here, including How the West Was Won, The Unsinkable Molly Brown, The Searchers, Snowball Express, Cheyenne Autumn, and Caribou Trail. For all of you here this evening, I want all of you to be engaged in the pursuit of excellence. You go to class all the time. You study hard. You be involved. You be committed. When I was cross-country coach, we had a phrase that we had in the back of our practice jerseys: the failure to prepare is preparing to fail. Now, 2 more things before we go. When you get out of Western State, I can guarantee you, you'll be all like a lot of other alums, and you'll want to come back, and some of you won't want to leave, and some of you will never leave. About 1885, a great writer for the Denver Post, Eugene Field, used to drink a lot of beers with miners up at Gold Hill above Boulder. And then he was transferred to New York. And when he came back, he went up to the Wentworth Hotel to drink again with the miners, and the damn thing, the boom had busted. There wasn't anybody there. And Eugene Field lamented the following: "Oh, them days on Red Hoss Mountain when the skies was fair and blue, when the money flowed like liquor and the folks was brave and true, when the nights was crisp and balmy and the camp was all astir, while the joints all throwed wide open and no sheriff to demur. Oh, them times on Red Hoss Mountain in the Rockies far away, there's no such place, nor times like them, as I can find today." And finally, I am a big hockey fan. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, skating on the ponds and the rivers. And people don't like me to say that I'm a big Detroit Red Wing fan.
Go Wings!
But one of the great rival teams of the Red Wings were the Montreal Canadiens. And the greatest Canadian of them all, the guy I loved even though he was an opposing player. Eyes, they said, his black eyes glowed as he moved in on goal. And his name was Maurice the Rocket Richard. And when they asked the Rocket what he would like to have on his grave marker when he passed away, he said this, and I hope all of you never forget it: that some days, he said, were good days, and some days were bad days, but there was never any day that I didn't try my best. That's it. Thank you for coming.